As you probably already know, mainly because we've shown you a lot of cases of it, the world of pet ownership isn't as basic as people want you to believe. Not the least of which is that while many people prefer the simple pets like dogs and cats, or maybe even a cute little beautiful guinea pig, some people really want to go beyond, if you will, and try something that's a bit odd or exotic or just plain weird. And if you thought our previous list had some odd creatures and pet owners, we've got another one to blow your mind. From people who own hyenas to a kid washing a crock and more, here are 19 most dangerous animals kept as pets, Part 2. Number 19. Hyenas. Hyenas are a pet that we've talked about before, but that was a specific case. Now we're going on to the general sense as to whether or not they can be good pets at all. Because some people really think they can raise one of these African creatures, often with mixed results. One expert in raising hyenas, a phrase that I never thought that I would utter on YouTube, has said that the biggest problem with potential owners is that they have no patience when they try to train them. Humans having patience? That's a long shot. Another thing that has to be remembered is that even if you get them when they're young, they're not a domesticated species. They're actually a wild animal. Who knew? And as a result of that, you need to treat them with respect, the same that any wild animals need, or else things are going to get a bit tricky. The key thing here as well is that you have to feed them the right things. They're used to having meals out of the African wild, not your apartment or home or the McDonald's down the street. So you need to make sure they're eating the proper meals or else they're going to suffer. Oh, and if you do try to contain your hyena in a small place like your 500 square foot New York City apartment, it's not going to end well for you at all. So make sure that you have a thing like a backyard or something for them to run at least semi-free. Or you could just be rational and get a dog instead. Before we go on, like this video, smash the subscribe button, and click the notification bell right now, or this centipede will crawl on your face when you're sleeping. Number 18. Toddler's Crock. Now I'm going to have another croc story later on, but I'm going to begin with this one because you'd swear that it would end badly for the child in question. However, that's not the case at all, apparently. Once upon a time, crocs were a very popular pet in the world alongside alligators because they were seen as being cute, exotic pets until they would eventually grow too big to be handled and contained, and thus were then released. But in Indonesia, which ironically also plays host to our other croc story, they have less rigid views on crocodiles, to the extent that a toddler apparently can play with a 4.5-foot long croc and not get hurt by it at all. To be clear, the family didn't buy the croc at full size, but rather when it was very, very tiny. And these crocs are known to grow at an incredible rate, and as a result of that, they soon had a croc that was bigger than the toddler itself that's playing with it. Yet it's perfectly fine with playtime, well, for now at least. Furthermore, the toddler in question wasn't only playful with the croc, she was completely fearless and had no qualms getting up close and personal with her pet. This apparently pleased her family to no end, to the extent that they hope she becomes a zookeeper one day. Just picture that interview. Are you good with animals? Want to see pictures of me and my pet crocodile? Well, you're hired. Number 17. Cougar. Now, if you're hoping that we'll have some stories of the big cats getting homes in places that they honestly shouldn't, I may have a couple for you. And I'll begin with one about a cougar. And no, I'm not making a joke about some hot old lady that you know. Get your mind out of the gutter. In 2016, Alexander Dmitriev and his wife Mariah decided to adopt a young cougar called Messi and raise him as a house pet in their small studio apartment in Penza, Russia. First and foremost, that's not the most wise thing to do. Having a big animal in a small space rarely works well, even when it's something like a dog, which obviously a cougar is not. To try and fight what might happen, the two then went to put the cougar on a schedule of sorts to help ensure that it was properly taken care of and that it wouldn't make a mess of grand proportions. Always possible when it comes to a big cat. The big cat eats twice a day with a diet that consists of turkey, beef, and a bit of chicken breast along with some bones, and with a growing social media following on Instagram and more than 2 million views on YouTube within a short period of time, Messi has become something of a local celebrity. And if you think about stories like this that you've heard before, especially from us, you know that if there's one thing people can be counted on for with their pets nowadays, it's to try and make them stars on social media. Because clearly they're not good for anything else in their owners' minds. Number 16. Boar. Hearing that someone has a pig is not all that odd. Hearing that they decided to adopt a 100-pound boar, though, well, that's a little bit different. And to that end, a couple decided to indeed adopt such an animal. But once again, this is not a story that you would think it is. Rather, the couple found the boar when it was in the woods alone, without any proper nourishment, and was basically on the brink of death. Seeing it in its crippled state, they then went and saved it, and for them, the rest is history. What may surprise you, though, is that despite being a wild animal, it adopted some dog-like qualities while under human care. Case in point, it'll actually go and pose on the stairs when the owners want it to. Oh, what a world we live in. Number 15. Kojak. In a small pool of water in an Indonesian backyard lives Kojak the crocodile. Now, usually this would be a story that ends in the proper animal protection authorities coming in and trying to remove the croc from the backyard without hurting anyone else. It's a story that's as old as time. However, not this time, because Kojak the crocodile is meant to be there on purpose, because he's the pet to a family headed up by Erwin, and this croc is definitely what you'd hope a pet crocodile would be like, apparently. Kojak spends his days in a small channel of water at the back of Erwin's garden. The family's washing hangs right next to him, and Erwin's 3 children are free to play ball games on the turquoise green ceramic tiles that are parallel to the croc. Now, you'd think that this would all be a recipe for disaster, especially when you remember that crocodiles are first-strike predators and can't help but lunge at food that's nearby, as it isn't easy to capture kill. However, Kojak is apparently been with the family for over 2 decades, and during his time with them, he's never hurt a single human being. Oh, but he did kill a cat once. However, the cat had it coming because it was psycho anyways, and it lost everything. Crocs are a pet that a lot of people would seem to want to have, but whether or not they can actually control the crocodile is the big question. For Erwin, it appears to not be much of an issue, and that's pretty awesome. Now that's 2 crocodile stories that didn't end in disaster, and that's a cause for praise. Number 14. Koala. Don't be fooled. While it's true that koalas look like furry little bears that hide in trees in Australia, these things are honestly quite dangerous. Not the least of which is because it eats eucalyptus leaves and they're poisonous. Yeah, that's right. They eat poison to try and ward off predators. These are some crazy bears. And yet we let that slide because they look so adorable. Anyways, one time a koala named Henry was in danger after it would be separated from its parent, and it would then be rescued by an 11-year-old girl who took care of the koala before releasing it back into the wild. But then Henry got into some danger again, so the girl had to intervene once more, and only after a few attempts was Henry able to go back out and be his old wild koala bear self again. Number 13. Sloth. Now, I'll be honest, sloths, well, they're slow, they're lazy, and They prefer to stay in trees all day, and we just kinda let them. They're the embodiment of what many humans want to be but can't, and thus many hate them. Except for the family that was more than happy to adopt one. Jenny and Terry Koenig are the proud owners of Enzo, a sloth who was bred in captivity. Apparently, the couple wanted to have a sloth for a very long time, and why? Well, no one can say really, but clearly they do have very unique tastes in animals for one reason or another. However, the ironic part is that they really needed to go all out for the sloth. They had to make every preparation to ensure that the settings for the sloth were correct according to its usual environment, and they did it without any cares. Oh, and if you're wondering how sloths are dangerous, well, they're a bit like One Punch Man. When they get serious, you're in trouble. Number 12. Wolf Dog. Here's a creature that's very easy to explain in terms of why many people think it's dangerous, because the wolf dog, as it is known, is indeed a dog that has a wolf heritage, mainly a wild wolf bred with a domesticated species of dog. Due to its nature, it can be an incredible protector of the home, but it can also be one that lashes out in a very wolf-like way in order to attack someone or get someone away from their home and family. As a result of this, the wolf dog is a bit, well, of a tricky pet to have, not because of the whole wolf-like tendencies thing, but rather they're not exactly legal in every country. Yes, this is a creature that's so dangerous in the eyes of some that they're straight up banned in places like Norway because they just don't want to risk them doing harm to people. And yet, people still continue to own them as pets. Number 11. Brown bear. Now, this is a real story, and it's going to get even more real and understandable in just a few moments because I'm going to paint a picture for you. It's wintertime in your home country or state or where you live. You've got the urge to get warm as soon as possible. What do? Well, the typical answer is to get on some warm clothing, put on some blankets, start a fire, have some hot cocoa, contemplate your entire life, and immerse yourself in your bed. But for Svetlana and Yuri Pantelenko, their preferred method is to go and snuggle with a 300-pound brown bear. Oh yes, what better way to get your bones warm than to get close with an animal that could literally kill you in moments without any issues at all. The only place more weird than Russia is Florida, just saying. Oh, and to be clear on something, this isn't a small and compact bear. It's over 7 feet tall. However, for Svetlana and Yuri, they apparently have it easy, as their bear is apparently very kind and is also playful, as you'd think a cute bear pet should be in your imagination. It turns out the bear absolutely loves people and is very sociable. Despite what people may think, he's not aggressive at all, and no one has ever been bitten. Should we be happy for them? Well, yes we should. Are we not going to risk our lives by adopting a brown bear as a pet? You bet we're not. Number 10. Cheetahs. Now you may expect the rest of these big cat stories to be just about things like lions and tigers. However, believe it or not, cheetahs are a very popular pet in the exotic pet market, if you will. And the next story is about one who's very cozy with a toddler. This is about Milan and his sister Kayla, who have two very unique pets, a pair of cheetahs. The siblings have formed an extraordinary bond with the creatures after growing up with them in their home in South Africa. The pair think nothing of sharing their toys with two big cheetahs, affectionately known as Waku and Skyla, and they can often be found taking their feline friends out for a ride in the family's mini Jeep. But surely these two cheetahs didn't just wander into their lives, right? Well, you'd be correct. Rather, they live near the Garden Route Game Lodge in the Western Cape of South Africa, and one of the cheetahs there would give birth to 4 cubs, and the parents of Milan and Kayla adopted 2 of them so they could raise them. To be fair, they didn't plan on keeping them forever, and have even helped the cheetahs learn how to hunt on their own because they want them to be able to return to the wild one day. But for now, they're simply the pets of the children as well as the household. Number 9. Tiger. Now, you really should have seen this one coming because tigers, for one reason or another, are one of the most desired exotic pets out there, and people go to crazy lengths just to get them. For example, you remember Joe Exotic, don't you? How could you not? He went and raised all sorts of tigers at his infamous zoo and claimed to be close to them as possible, and then many of them attacked him or his co-workers, resulting in severe bodily injury. Oh, how fun! Oh, and then there are certain people who will actually risk illegal activity in order to bring a young tiger cub home, including one time, and I'm not kidding here, someone trying to hide one in a suitcase. It was unconscious for the record, in order to just go unnoticed at an airport and have it sent to them. And we wonder why people seem like idiots most of the time. Number 8. The Empty Animal Ark. Now here's a twist on our usual tales, if you will, because I'm not just talking about a couple who's recently gotten an odd or dangerous pet. Rather, I'm talking about someone who has a series of them in their own courtyard. Welcome to the Empty Animal Ark, where you'll find over 90 wild animals inside, and let's have a look at what's in there. Oh look, it's Dr. Prakash Amte, along with his wife Mandakini. They're the ones who set up the place in order to make an animal rescue shelter. What a truly wonderful motivation. His efforts were recognized as a rescue shelter in 1991, and the animals that he houses include jackals, leopards, hyenas, porcupines, an Indian python, a crocodile, peacocks, sloth bears, and more. The shelter is a visitor attraction, especially amongst children, but given all of the animals that he and his wife have, you can't help but ask yourself, how did such a thing begin? Well, it began when Dr. Prakash found that the local tribes were going after all kinds of animals to try and get food, even their babies. So he made a trade with them to spare the babies in return for things like rice. They would accept and began out with a baby monkey, growing his collection from there. While this is not something that I'd recommend for everyone to do, it is a very noble endeavor and something to be emulated if it can be reasonably done. Hunting animals for food is fine, in the right areas and the right ways, but killing their children, well, that hurts their population and it's kind of just cruel. No doubt that's another reason the Amtes started the park, and many animals now live happily there as a result. Number 7. Reindeer. Now, before you say something along the lines of reindeer aren't all that dangerous, you need to remember that reindeer, well, they're deer at heart, and thus they have antlers, and at times they can be skittish in nature. A bad combination if you're on the wrong end of those antlers. But for Atu, that's a different story. Atu was abandoned by his mother when he was a small calf in the northern Finnish wilderness and would be rescued by a young boy before finding his way to one Miss Tukinen. After raising it for years, the reindeer has gone from being antisocial to eating food from a plate at the dinner table. So that's what you could call proper raising. Just hope that it doesn't step out in front of your vehicle at 60 miles an hour. Number 6. Iguana. Now, admittedly, if you are going to make a top-tier list of animals that are dangerous to have as pets, I'm pretty sure the iguana is not going to be all that high on the list. But that's not to say that iguanas aren't dangerous or couldn't cause you problems if you're not careful. But as a lizard, and usually a small one at that, you don't typically have to fear them being dangerous. That brings us to a very special video that's likely to blow your mind in certain ways, because here we have an iguana that happily lives in someone's backyard, and yet it acts like a dog, especially when it comes to their owner coming home to greet them. Yeah, for real. The person will come home and say, "Come on, buddy.
Come on. Come on, buddy. Come on, buddy."
And the iguana will go to greet its owner happily. I want to know this man's training regimen for his lizard, because I want to emulate it with others to make a fortune. No, I'm not joking, or at least not fully joking. This is really a cool thing, as you don't usually see animals like iguanas get all that animated. They usually are only active when they're going after food or hunting down a predator or fighting off one. As such, seeing one act like a dog is kind of a special thing, and if you recall the last video, these lizards are apparently fine acting as dogs. Number 5. Pet lion. Now, I talked about a pet lion in the last video, but that was actually a lioness who had been raised a certain way to help sheep on a farm. This time around, it's about a male, one who's so comfortable with his owner that he apparently is more than happy to spend time on the couch. The man from Pakistan bought the cub and has let the king of the jungle have free reign of his home. It's not always the smartest of ideas, but apparently the guy doesn't care all that much. Babar the lion already weighed more than 12 stone when he was bought, and he wolfed down 17 pounds of raw meat every day. One could only imagine what he gets now, as he's likely fully grown, and it's been 2 years since the story would debut. The man happily allows his furry friend to run free at the family's plush bungalow, where he has his own king-size bed with a double mattress and air conditioning. So in short, the lion gets more love and attention than certain people that I know. How classy. Obviously, there's a big risk in having a lion like this as a pet, because should it decide to go feral, that would be quite a large problem for the family and others. Not to mention some of its animal instincts might not be fully tamed as of yet. But does that seem to bother or worry the man who owns it? Not so much. He's probably bragging to everyone he knows that he has a lion as a pet. Number 4. Kangaroo. Now, look, I get it. Kangaroos can be really awesome creatures when they've seen from afar or in movies and television shows and the like, but these are actually creatures that can literally kick you into submission and think nothing of it. So who would be so stupid as to have one as a pet? Well, it's simple. One who found a baby kangaroo and raised it as its own. Who would kick their father? Actually, don't answer that. Australian comedian Jackson O'Doherty rescued a baby kangaroo from the side of a rural highway outside of Sydney when she was just a few weeks old. He named her Damien, and they've been inseparable ever since.
She's gonna grow up to be a strong kangaroo, Damien. Who's a good girl?
Damien even goes as far as to chase her father in places like beaches for fun. Jackson went and took all kinds of videos with young Damien, and they are indeed adorable together. It would have been a different story though had he tried this with a full-grown adult kangaroo. Number 3. Owl. Now, I'll admit having an owl as a pet isn't all that odd. In fact, it was part of the lore of Harry Potter that many young wizards could have an owl as a pet. And in the vein of that beloved story, I'm here to show you one about a young girl and her snow owl, who are apparently very close together. The video shows the two exchanging hugs and kisses with a feathery friend comfortable in their home. The little girl showers her friend with affection, and it seems to reciprocate to an extent. The obvious question, though, is why would an owl be a dangerous pet if so many people have them as pets? Well, in this particular case, it's about the owls themselves and how they're raised. Not unlike others that I've shown you, if you do try to get close to a truly wild owl, you'll probably be in trouble, whereas if you raise it since it was basically born, you tend to be okay. That's a very key distinction, as owls are known to be very territorial to the extent that they've even attacked and killed people and animals that have gotten too close to their nest, even if it was on accident. The fact of the matter is that the girl has a snowy owl that doesn't seriously hurt her, and that's a good thing, but it's not something that happens every time. Number 2. Giant pythons. Snakes are a tricky thing when it comes to being a dangerous pet, because when you get small species or even the non-venomous ones, the worst thing that you have to worry about most of the time is just getting bitten if you tick the thing off. But for some people, they want to get the biggest snake possible, and apparently children love those big old snakes, such as with one girl who loves her set of pythons. The girl in question's named Emmy, and her pet reticulated pythons are named Sunny and Cher. Oh, and this isn't a match made in heaven where it was love at first sight or anything. Emmy had years with these snakes. The family got them when Emmy was just 4 years old, and a few years later she has a great affection for them that would be rather adorable if it wasn't for the fact that these snakes are over 15 feet long and could crush her easily if they wanted to. Apparently, though, no such tendencies exist within these pythons. Both snakes are very tame and gentle, and they haven't shown any kind of defensive or aggressive behavior towards the family. Do you suppose if they were to cuddle with Emmy that it would be a case of, I got you, babe? You know, because they're Sunny and Cher and all. Number 1. Jessica the House Hippo. Now I'm ending on a high note, or in this case, a hippo note. If you've never really seen a hippo before, then you might have only experienced them via things like Hungry Hungry Hippos or the Madagascar films, or seen them in a zoo. They're fun-loving creatures who are just hungry all the time. Well, they're not. In fact, hippos are one of the most dangerous animals in the world by far. They can do things like stampede you, knock over boats into the water, and of course kill people without a whole lot of effort. So this might then surprise you that there's a well-known hippo pet in the world, and her name is Jessica. She would be found at a very young age in an emaciated state along the banks of the Blyde River in South Africa, and then taken into a rehabilitation center. This in many ways is the difference between a happy yet odd story and a tragic one, because that means that the baby hippo was one that could be shown to not attack humans instead of going off of natural instinct. As the people who raised Jessica, they gave her everything that she needed to both live and interact with other hippos.
And how do you see her?
But the twist here is that Jessica's being dubbed an ambassador for her species, and she's even become a tourist attraction in South Africa where you can go and pet her for a small price. Nice way to treat your pet, you know, monetize it. While this is a heartwarming story, there is a dark ending. Another person in South Africa also had a hippo as a pet, and one day that hippo literally bit him in half. So with Jessica, her story may just well be the exception and not the rule. That's all from the realm of weird pets. Again, were you amazed by these pet stories and showing how weird people can get when they want an exotic pet? And which of them honestly freaked you out as you heard about them? Do you know of any other pet stories that would fit on the list? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. Also be sure to check out the other cool stuff showing up on the screen, and I'll see you next time.